Hi, my name is Gavin, and I work on AI agents at Stripe. And today I want to explain what an AI agent actually is. Because this keyword has been thrown around a lot, it's very popular as a buzzword right now. And I guess people are, begging for an answer of what actually is an AI agent, without all the fluff, without all the, LinkedIn people talking about it in various ways. I'm going to tell you what it actually is in a way that I think most people will be able to understand. So, AI agents are the most recent evolution of the LLM that I'm sure that most of you are comfortable with that came around in 2020, 2021. You ask ChatGPT a question and it gives you a response. Well, this is an evolution of various steps. Those various steps are, well, so first, in the very beginning, we had the LLM, and then augmented LLMs came. And then around that same time, workflows started popping up. And then now we have AI agents. So I'm going to go over briefly each of these, and they all build into each other. So I'll make a diagram, and then the diagram will progressively become larger and larger until we reach the AI agent level. And you'll understand why these all build into each other. So LLMs are relatively straightforward if you're using them as a user. You have an input I, and then it goes to the LLM, and then it produces an output. We'll call the output O. So you ask it a question, it does some magic, and then it produces an answer. But this was not enough. People wanted to make LLMs stronger, more powerful. They wanted them to do more things. So researchers essentially said, well, what if we can give it more things to do? It can perform actions. It can search through large bodies of text. This is where these kind of strengths came in. So they invented three things here, and I'll go over all three briefly. So the first thing that came along was with tools. So tools essentially are like, okay, now as an LM, you can search the internet using this tool. You can call this API using this tool. This allowed the LM to interact with other computers, essentially, which made it very powerful. You can imagine if you have experience with programming, calling APIs opens so many doors. And searching the internet also opens a lot of doors. If you are booking flights, for example, right? It's very useful. And then something that came along was memory. So memory came along, and the most popular example of this is there was a trend going along where you can ask ChatGPT, "Hey, create an image of what you think I look like," or you could ask it, "Hey, what should I major in college based off what you know about me? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Or maybe what job should I take in the workforce? What job am I best suited for?" You can ask it these things, and it would give you a reasonable guess as to, what you look like or what your job should be, because you've been talking with it for. I would assume many people are talking with it over the course of a few years. It stores things in memory now. And the last thing that happened was retrieval. So if you are familiar with RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, basically what this means is you have a large body of documents in your company or your personal files or whatever. You can now search through these. The LM can search through these to find relevant stuff, which turns out to be very useful if you want to look up documentation on a certain project you made or something like that, right? So these are augmented LLMs. This is the augmented LLM here. So now workflows kind of came into play around the same time. So people said, well, yeah, one LLM is awesome, but what if, say, we take this and we copy paste it, right? Copy paste it next to each other. Well, two LLMs is better than one. People discovered this. Well, this is not exactly true, but people discovered that for many tasks, two LLMs is better than one. So what they did was they're like, okay, so say I want to create an AI that books travel. So what do you need to do as a human if you want to, book a flight? Well, you want to uh, research the best flights, and then you want to book it. So perhaps what you could do is you could have one LLM do the research, and then another LLM book it, right? It turns out that if you break down problems into sub-problems for the LLM, it gets better and better at doing it in certain scenarios. If you say, okay, LLM, book me a flight, well, then perhaps some of its thinking power, maybe 30% of its thinking power is delegated to searching, and then 30% to, finding determining which is the best one, and then maybe like 30% for actually booking it, and so on. But if you chain them together, well, now you get more computing power. This is going to be more expensive, but essentially breaking it down into sub-problems makes it more efficient for completing tasks most of the time. So now you have an agent, you have an LLM to do some research. It calls the tool to scrape the internet and find flights. And then once it finds the flights, it says, okay, book this flight. It'll return it some JSON looking like this. It'll call this LLM to say, book it. And then this LLM will probably call a tool that books the flight using American Airlines API or something like that, right? So that's a workflow. And workflows were still not enough. They were, if you've ever used an AI company's products, they probably have a workflow set up. It doesn't work most of the time because LLMs they hallucinate sometimes they're not reliable. So our latest development, an AI agent, essentially says, okay, I'm not going to have a fixed number of steps here. I want the AI agent to determine how many steps. So say that you want to book travel, right? Let's move this down a little bit. So say you want to book travel. You're going to essentially create an input that is sent to an LLM, and it produces an output. That's all it is. But what this LLM is going to do is the LLM is going to create its own workflow. So the LLM will say, okay, I want to create this. Me as the LLM, I think that the best course of action here is to first research the flights and then second, book it. That's what I'm going to do as the LLM. So then you as the human, you don't have to create this workflow. The LLM does it for you. That's what an AI agent is. So something about AI agents is there's going to be a dynamic number of steps, if that makes sense. If we say that each LLM call here is a step, there's going to be a dynamic number of steps, meaning that an agent could create 2 steps for this, like we have a 1-step, 2-step, or maybe the agent is going to create 5 steps. Maybe it wants to search the internet for flights, then it wants to use an algorithm to determine the best one, and then it wants to, I don't know, ask your girlfriend if this is okay, and then get a response, and then it wants to do something else and then book it. Maybe it determines that's the answer. We won't know. The AI is going to do it for us. That's what an agent is. Now, how is this useful, creating a dynamic number of steps? Well, creating a dynamic number of steps is useful because you can imagine if you have, say, let's create some examples of AI companies. I think the goal of many AI companies is to replicate a human in many aspects. And for example, customer service agents or programmers or doctors, AI companies are trying their best to replicate what a human would do in that scenario. Now, say you are a customer service agent and someone comes to you and they say, hey, you suck, I hate your product, your company should die. Well, you don't really need a bunch of steps for that. You don't need a whole workflow to answer that question. That's just I'm really sorry about that. You can submit a complaint here, something like that. But if a customer comes to you and they say, hey, my account got hacked, can you please do something? I don't know what to do. My account got hacked. I'm going to lose $5 billion of Bitcoin. Please help me. Well, now as the agent, you want to do many things. You want to ping people on call. You want to file a ticket. You want to log their account out of all devices. You want to send them a new password link. You want to do a bunch of steps. And as a human, if you were to make workflows for every single scenario that a customer service agent could encounter, well, as a human, if you've ever worked in customer service, you know that that's not possible. It's very rare that you find 2 identical scenarios. Perhaps there are some scenarios that repeat over and over again, and this is what AI companies are currently really good at for routine kind of questions like, hey, your company sucks, I hope your company dies. That's a routine question that customer service agents get a lot, and the workflow is able to answer that because we know that. But if some unique questions come in, well, we don't really have workflows for those because like they get more and more rare. So having an agent that can dynamically create a workflow for any problem is really, really powerful. And this is what is going to accelerate development in certain fields. You can imagine if you're a doctor, you could have a kid come in, he fell off a scooter, he has a scrape on his arm. This is a very simple problem. You disinfect it, apply a bandage, and let the parent know to look out for any infections, right? It'll change colors if there's an infection. Very simple. But someone could come in, they have a bunch of symptoms, overlapping symptoms, they have a history of diabetes, they had a stroke last year. They come in and they say, okay, I'm feeling lightheaded. This is a very, very complex problem that you cannot create. You can create a workflow for this, but it's a lot easier if you can have an agent create workflows for any scenario. There's a very diverse, infinite number of scenarios possible. So therefore, we should have an infinite number of workflows to match that. And that's where the AI agent comes in. It creates its own workflows dynamically instead of you, the human, having to do them. And that's why they're useful. I hope that made sense. If it didn't, please let me know. I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but if I did not succeed, I am always looking to improve. So, yeah, that's it. Have a great day.